Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Reporter's Notebook. I am Tara Seals, Managing Editor for News at Dark Reading, and I am here with representatives from our sister publications. We are all part of the Cybersecurity Media Group at Informa Tech Target. Sharon and Eric, would you like to introduce yourselves, please? Sharon, you can go first.
Hi, I'm Sharon Shea. I am the executive editor on Tech Target SearchSecurity, and happy to be joining you guys today to talk about Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
And I'm Eric Geller, senior reporter at Cybersecurity Dive. Happy to be here as well.
Great. Thank you guys for joining me. I really appreciate it. Today, we are going to break down what we found out from Cybersecurity Awareness Month, October 2025. We had a full court press in terms of covering some news stories that have to do with password hygiene and falling for phishing and things like that. And I know, Sharon, your group also looked into maybe why some of those things keep happening. And then Eric, I know you did a deep dive into why user awareness training isn't really taking, and some things that companies might be able to consider to turn that around. So maybe as a framing device, I might just say that Dark Reading did run a poll during the month that was very interesting. It was asking about what kind of password protocol companies and enterprises were using, and they had different options. One was just kind of your classic strong password, certain number of characters, letter, number, uppercase, lowercase, that kind of thing. And then the other was passphrases. So, my dog Rover, Sunday 25. Another one was single sign-on, which is actually, becoming more and more common, obviously, where you just use your corporate credentials and it just automatically logs you into related AD applications. And then finally, I asked about password vaults. That was the fourth option. Password vaults and also hardware tokens. So basically advanced, like super strong security. And, sadly, the majority of companies are still stuck in, the 20 to 15 year ago, craze for 8-digit passwords that include a special character and a number. So that's kind of unfortunate. I would say I think it was close to 40 some odd percent said that. And then that was followed pretty closely by single sign-on, actually. So that was a little bit encouraging. And then after that, we had phrase passwords, and then after that was single sign-on. So, I think these are things that we've been talking about for a very, very long time from a password hygiene perspective, and it just I don't know, companies just don't seem to be adopting it. And then on the phishing front, what we found through our coverage is, phishing still works. And obviously in the age of AI, it's becoming more and more convincing, and people are falling for it more and more commonly. It just, again, it's that cat mouse arms race kind of situation where we're a little bit at a stalemate situation where, we have pretty strong defenses, but the bad guys are pretty good at getting through them. So, Sharon, what did you find when you started to delve into some of your evergreen content around this?
Yeah, it's actually a great point. I appreciate the point you made about the passphrases. This is something that we've been publishing a lot of information on lately, and we did an update to our email security best practices, and I think it was 6 or 7 years ago that NIST actually did away with the go for complexity and, let's go for make it longer, easy to remember, but hard to guess, right? And that's where the passphrases can come in. I did a test in one of our articles about putting them into the Guess Your Password tool, one of those ones online, and it was something like, my cat Clarinet loves salmon. It took like septillion years to guess or something like that to hack. Right. So, passphrases are definitely, we're seeing an uptick in guidance toward them. So that was a big one too. Beyond that, phishing, I updated an article on phishing, and it's surprising, besides adding in a little bit about AI, it's a lot of the same stuff. We're really saying, know what to look for. I know attacks are becoming more targeted, and they're definitely becoming more sophisticated. But we're definitely saying it's a lot of the same guidance. Just don't click it. If you're worried about it, don't click it. And then in reading some of your guys' coverage, 64% of executives admitted to clicking phishing links, and 17% never reported it, even though you're supposed to report it. So it was a lot of the same guidance, but folks are still falling for it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and it's interesting too, because I was talking to one of my sources, and they were saying that at their company, they don't even require, yearly training anymore. They just have resorted to, you can't even get to your applications for the day until you answer a few user awareness questions. And so they've gotten to this sort of like, it was actually Juventus, the soccer club over in Italy. And he was saying that, because they have a range of different types of employees that do different things. I mean, some of these people are just, even working in retail at the stadium and stuff like that. And so, they might have a quiz, or they might have, just snackable little things that they have to accomplish before they can log in for the day. And he seemed to think that was, an effective way to go about user awareness, maybe more effective than your big giant annual trainings, which is what we have here at our company. Eric, what did you find? Because I know you did kind of a deep dive on this, right?
Yeah, I looked at a bunch of studies that have tried to understand how effective these security awareness training programs are. And these studies date back, in the case of the ones I looked at, to 2008. I'm sure they go back further than that as well. But one of the things I found in more recent studies and literature reviews was these trainings don't actually decrease people's click rates. People still click on phishing tests and simulated malicious emails at high rates, even after they take the training. In fact, in some cases, these trainings can actually make people overconfident. So they click more phishing links because they think they've been trained, they understand the risks, and they go out into the world thinking that they have a better understanding than they actually do. And so that really drives home this question of, what can organizations do if they want to make their employees more resilient? And one of the things that these studies are finding is it's not doing your traditional, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, phishing program. And it's also not giving people lessons when they click a phishing link, telling them, you fell for it. Here is some information that you should know going forward. They call that embedded training because it's embedded in the message that you get when you fail the test. The studies
kind of shaming at that point, right? It's like, you failed. That's not necessarily constructive.
I talked to a behavioral psychologist who focuses on the psychology of cybersecurity in terms of how we train people to do the things that are safest for them and their organizations. And one of the things he said was this fear-based, shame-based model, not only has it not worked, but it runs counter to everything we know about behavioral psychology in terms of not just telling people phishing is bad, be on the lookout for phishing, but actually making them want to be better and training them to have not just the knowledge that phishing is bad, but the attitudes and the behaviors that will help prevent them from being victims. So that's another major thing from the research that I studied was some of these training programs, they're really focused on training knowledge, not shaping behavior. And what you really want is that end product of changing behavior. But the programs are designed to just deliver knowledge. And there's a disconnect there because knowledge is a precursor to behavior, but it's not the same thing. So that was one of the big findings from this research is the way that they're set up is not actually efficient at changing people's behavior.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. And so Sharon, what are your thoughts on that? Does that kind of dovetail with what you've been seeing and some of the things that you've collated?
Yeah, it was one of our authors, Damon Garn, wrote a tutorial about how to use GoFish, which is a phishing simulation tool. And really a lot of the emphasis in it was don't use this to get mad at your employees. Don't use this to tell them what they're doing wrong. It's really a way to, maybe it's time to do a personalized training for a certain team or a certain group if they see consistencies among different users and employees to know, exactly where things need to be updated. And I know we had an article a while back, and I don't have the name of the author, but they were really talking about the reaction and kind of this click whir where it was like people just click. They don't think about it before they click. So you really need that behavioral psychology part put into trainings.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so bottom line, what do we think? So like, new day, same problems basically at this point. Do we see a way to move the needle going forward? Potentially? Are people catching on?
Yeah, it's
hard to say. Yeah.
It's hard to say. Absolutely. And we keep hearing gamification and making trainings better and more fun. And honestly, we haven't seen it happen. Maybe it is at some companies, but these hour-long trainings, they aren't cutting it.
Yeah. Eric, final thoughts. What do you want to wrap up on?
Well, one of the things I heard from the reports I read and also the folks I talked to was you need to understand the root causes of the risky behavior so that you can develop training that actually, again, changes behavior, not just delivers knowledge. So going back to the idea of behavioral psychology and why people do things that are not in their best interest and how you can help them make better decisions, you have to think about what will encourage them to do the right thing, not just what will scare them about doing the wrong thing. So that goes back to this idea of trying to get away from shame and scare tactics. And the behavioral psychologist I talked to, who's actually written an op-ed for Dark Reading a few years ago about this problem, was saying essentially all of these models are built based on a flawed understanding of how human beings operate. And that's probably explained by the fact that these training programs aren't developed by scientists. They're not developed by people who have expertise in behavioral psychology. They're developed by cybersecurity experts who don't generally understand the sort of human factor side of things. They don't generally understand what drives people. All they know is the outcomes, and we got to prevent these bad outcomes. But in order to do that, you have to understand people and why they act the way they do.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys, well, that concludes this edition of Reporter's Notebook. Thank you, Eric Geller from Cybersecurity Dive, Sharon Shea from Tech Target Search Security, and I am Tara with Dark Reading. Thank you very much, and catch us next time.